guys. Welcome to Notorious Women Podcast. I'm Lavetta.
I'm Miriam.
And this is Notorious Women, a comedy podcast about some of history's most notorious women. We're just being silly.
She started it.
I did.
You did.
Because I'm still in Florida hell, so I have to find my joy somewhere, someplace.
Yeah. And I get to be the victim of her joy. That's fine.
So silly.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, God. Well, I think we should get started, darling. I believe, let me just double check because we made a oomph, not a goof, but a oomph last time. So
listen, I love an oomph. Yes. An oomph. It's not a goof.
Or is it a moof?
Listen, it's an oopsie. It's an oopsie. I have small children. It's an oopsie.
Oh, oopsie's much cuter than oomph.
Although my children would be like, I am not a baby. How dare you? And I'll be like, you're right. I forgot you're grown up. My bad.
I know. You want to be big so bad when you're that age.
No, I'm like, I beg you to only worry about the problems of childhood as long as you can. I beg you.
I know. Actually, you are first, my dear, this week. So who's your notorious woman this week that you're going to share with me?
So for the first time, don't hate me.
Okay.
I am doing a two-parter.
Okay.
So it's one person, but I'm going to talk about her this week, and then I'm going to finish talking about her next week.
This better be good. That's all I got to say. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Listen, when the woman you're going to talk about is Shirley Chisholm.
Oh.
You got to honor all she's done.
Excuse me? Okay. All right.
That's right.
You know what I'm doing now, Miriam. As a black person.
Yes.
From America. I got on my black judgment.
Yes.
Side eye. So.
I know. Yeah. No, I'm ready.
All right.
I'm ready for you.
Okay.
I should be more scared than I am. I know that.
Let me pull out my monocle and my judgmental eye.
And let me fail utterly. Awesome.
No. No, Shirley, this is going to be great. I know a little bit, but I am so excited for you to tell me all the stuff I don't know.
Well, here's the thing that was amazing, and this is why I made her a two-parter, is that I feel like we see her now as this black female sort of icon, right? That she sort of started it in terms of black women being in politics. At least that's how I see it as a white girl.
The popular thing. But yeah, you're not wrong as part of that, but yeah.
Yeah, and that's how she's sold in a way.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's see what she actually did and and where she came and how she pulled it off, man. Like, there's a lot.
Okay. Well, let's get into it.
So she was born Shirley Anita St. Hill. Her parents were immigrants from Barbados. She was born in Brooklyn, New York, however, on November 30th, 1924. She's of Guyanese and Bajan descent. And she has three younger sisters. So,
okay, I have to interrupt you. That's
already?
Bajan.
I'm sorry. See, I've already failed.
Barbados is Bajan, even though it's a terrible Caribbean accent, but it's Bajan.
Listen, it's better than mine, which was Bajan. Bajan. It's Bajan. I'll stop. I'm triggering you. Sorry. Can you say it again? It's so beautiful.
It's Bajan. Bajan.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Not what I said, but you said it's beautiful. So her parents were working class. And because they were working class, raising children and doing all of the jobs they had to do to get by was too much. So in 1929, when she was 5, she and her sisters were sent to live with their maternal grandmother, Emmeline Seal. So she later says, quote, "Granny gave me strength, dignity, and love. I learned from an early age that I was somebody. I didn't need the Black Revolution to tell me that. Which I think
that's what grandmothers are for, right?
Yes.
I love that.
I thought you would love that.
Yes.
She went to a one-room schoolhouse while she was there, and she came back in 1934, so about 5 years later. So, and she back to New York City. So because she spent her formative years in Barbados, she spoke with a West Indian accent throughout her life. In her autobiography years later, so this is what she said. She said, "Years later, I would know what an important gift my parents had given me by seeing to it that I had my early education in the strict traditional British-style schools of Barbados. If I speak and write easily now, that early education is the main reason."
Twitter would have something to say about that today.
Right? I think that's fascinating.
Well, I know what she's saying, but it's like the Twitter would be like, "Oh, so you're kowtowing to the colonists?
Mm-hmm.
It's a colonizer mind."
You really appreciate those colonists, huh?
I think what she's saying is that because of the educational system, depending on where you are in the United States, could be a challenge for a young Black kid, especially a young poor Black kid in the city. Perhaps I don't know what the educational standards were in Brooklyn when in the I guess it would be like late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's pockets of it. I mean, obviously it's a heyday of Harlem, so she's not up in Harlem with the fancy colored folks.
Nope, she's in Brooklyn.
But a lot of the young people, and rightfully so, there's one thing, but I also think that it's always nuanced because we've all been colonized. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I know what she's saying. She's saying that, but a lot of people be like, it's like, oh, strict educational standards, but it's how educational was it? Is it just reading, writing, arithmetic? Like you can find that anywhere, or is it just like another way to colonize Black children for the British to colonize Black children?
Because then you think about what she later did, and it could be very well be that when she was little, her parents didn't have as much time to look at her schoolwork, but she probably came home every day, and her grandma probably looked and said, "What did you do? How did you do it?" You know what I mean? Like it was just a different way to be educated.
Well, and I also think that, because in the United States, the educational standards are so vastly different depending on what state you're in. And even within a state, what part of the state and what neighborhood you're in. Mm-hmm. And therein lies the problem, because I had an excellent education, and I come from Florida back in the day. I didn't realize how good it was until I got older. And then I actually went to the North, and some of the kids, unless they got into like magnet programs or private schools, their education was not the best. And I went to all public schools throughout my formative years, but they were like excellent schools. I didn't realize how lucky I was. So it just depends.
That's because I remember being in high school and finding out what it took to graduate high school. And I remember being like, whoa, I'm like, I could have graduated my sophomore year. You know what I mean? Because they keep them on the low end, because to balance the fact that it is not, it's not good enough. I'll say that. We don't do enough.
I know what she's saying, though. Yeah, I get what she's saying.
But I'll say that she said that. And she has a right to feel how she felt too. You know what I mean? Like, I know Twitter would have so much fun, but like, that's how she felt.
Exactly.
So in 1939, she then attended girls' high school in Bed-Stuy, in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood. Well, it's Bed-Stuy, okay, of Brooklyn, which was a highly regarded and integrated school that attracted girls throughout Brooklyn. It is also mentioned in the movie a chorus line. I think you should transfer to Girls High. You'll never be an actress. Do you know that what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
You're such a theater nerd. Oh my Lord. You can't hide it.
I can't stop. All right. So she did really well academically. She was the vice president of the Junior Arista Honor Society. And she was accepted and offered scholarships to Vassar and Oberlin. But they couldn't afford her room and board there. So she went to Brooklyn College, which has free tuition, and she could live at home.
I heard that. Now that is a very like immigrant type of way of looking at, or working class, but also immigrants are like, ain't nobody got no money for that. You better go over there to Brooklyn College.
Well, it's really interesting for me to go through this part of her life because both of my parents lived in Brooklyn as kids and were very poor. And so like I remember, I'm gonna shout out to my mom who did not get into Brooklyn College and was desperate to get into it and like got into Hunter instead. And it turned out Hunter was also a really good school. So she's always like, you know, like this world. My dad went to Cooper Union, which was like free. And so they came from those worlds where like, yes, you can go to college, but no, we can't pay for it. And yes, you have to live at home.
Yep.
So she earned her Bachelor of Arts. She got her BA from Brooklyn in 1946. She majored in sociology and she minored in Spanish. She won prizes for her debating skills, which will come in handy later. What? And she graduated cum laude. I don't know what any of those things mean because I didn't come close to doing any of that. But it's good.
She's smart. She's smart.
Like so many brains, right? I can't count them because I'm not that smart. Right. Okay, we're clear. So when she was in college, she was a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority and the Harriet Tubman Society. So while she was in the Harriet Tubman Society, she advocated for inclusion, which specifically in terms of Black soldiers in the military during World War II. Because remember, she was in college during World War II.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And she also focused on courses to be put into the university or into the college that focused on African American history and the involvement of more women in the student government. It's like happening all over again.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, girl. And if I read this 7 years ago, I'd be like, and now we're good. But I'd be wrong. It'd be so wrong. But you know what? That's how we grow. We go, oh, no, we're not done. We're never done fighting. And that's the truth.
We're never done.
So she was surrounded by politics growing up. Her father was an avid supporter of Marcus Garvey. And he was also a dedicated supporter of the rights of trade union members. So she also, while she was in Barbados, saw her community fight for their rights, which when the workers there were, they had like, I think it was the anti-colonial independence movement, which like is interesting considering she went to a very strict British school.
That's the dilemma of the colonized.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Right? And in such formative years, right? She's like 8 around, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the late 1940s, she met a man named Conrad O. Chisholm. Does that last name sound familiar? So he had come to the United States from Jamaica in 1946, and he was a private investigator who specialized in negligence-based lawsuits.
Hold on. So, her husband was a PI?
Yeah.
Like, where is that story?
I know.
My Lord.
I would like this movie of the week, just like their like story. You know what I mean? And like, I mean, I love a mystery situation.
Yeah. So like, and then 1950s and like people of Caribbean descent, like I love that. Oh man, where is this story? This is what I want to say. Yeah.
Where is this series that I will binge? I will binge it. Like she's up and coming politic, making the world better. And he's figuring out, you know, what happened. And you're figuring out what happened with him.
And you know what? They solve crimes. Okay.
Yes. Maybe they have capes like on occasion. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I went too far. It's possible.
I'd watch the hell out of that.
Yeah, I would too. So they got married in 1949. And unfortunately, with this marriage, she suffered 2 miscarriages and they did not end up having children. So she ended up not having children. And there, people love to theorize that was her, her ambition got in the way. But I just feel like it's really hard to theorize, that. That's such a personal thing.
Yeah, and I think people forget, I don't think people often consider, the emotional and psychological toll it would take on you to have a baby and lose the baby twice. Some people just can't keep doing it,
Yeah, and it's like you could, and some people then tell themselves and the world that, okay, you know what, I have other things I want to do. But that's just like a coping mechanism, or that's, who knows? So many possibilities. So did you know this? Because I just learned this, but maybe you did. She was in education for many, many years.
Yes, I did know that.
So she started out working as a teacher's aide at the Mount Calvary Child Care Center in Harlem. She was there from 1946 to 1953. Meanwhile, she was also furthering her education. She took classes at night and earned her Master's of Arts in Childhood Education from the Teachers College of Columbia University in 1951. So from 1953 to 1954, she was then the director of the Friend in Need Nursery, which was in Brownsville, Brooklyn, which is so far away from Harlem. So I can't figure out where she actually lived. Because as someone who used to live in New York, you are not commuting from Harlem to Brownsville every day. Are you? That's going to take you 3 hours.
Yeah, okay. Some people may. I think it depends on where you are in Brooklyn. As we know, if you're near the main lines, you can. But also it's a different time. This is the early 50s. So you do what you got to do if you can get a job, right?
That is a fact. That is very true. Actually, I think my grandfather, because he was in Brooklyn, and the story is that he went up, I think it was the Upper West Side, but from way down in Brooklyn. Blocked house.
Yeah, I also, when I first moved to Brooklyn, I lived in the Flatbush area, which is a mostly Caribbean area.
Did we have this conversation already?
Maybe.
Because so did I.
And I worked in Manhattan, almost exclusively. So I would take, the train in, so.
Yeah, but you Manhattan, not Harlem.
Yeah, it would be Midtown. Yeah, but again, you got to do what you got to do if you got a job. So
listen, I'm gonna be for real with you. When Sal and I first started dating, he lived in Brooklyn and I lived in Washington Heights. So
and you guys survived.
Yeah.
Wow, that's love.
Listen, I basically moved into his apartment. Don't tell us.
Oh, okay.
All right. So she was at the Friend in Need Nursery in Brownsville. Then from 1954 to 59, she was the director of the Hamilton Madison Child Care Center in Lower Manhattan. And there she had 24 employees reporting to her. So from 1959 to 1964, she was an educational consultant for the Division of Daycare in New York City's Bureau of Child Welfare. So there she was in charge of supervising 10 daycare centers, as well as starting up new ones. So she became an authority on early education and child welfare issues.
Yep.
So, I wrote down, so she may not have had biological children, but she had half of New York City's children.
Oh, I love that. Yes, right? She did. Yes.
So she enters the world of politics in 1953. She joined Wesley, quote, Mac, unquote, I guess they called him Mac, Holder's effort to elect Louis Flagg Jr. to the bench as the first Black judge in Brooklyn. So that's crazy to me. The first Black judge, really nobody else you elected as a judge who was Black? Okay.
We're still doing the first Black in 2023, girl.
Oh, it's so stupid. People are stupid.
Because of racism.
I'm exhausted. All right. So, yeah. Apparently it's still around. Did you know? Racism? Yeah.
What are you talking about? It ended with Barack Obama. Like, what are you talking
because
about?
he became president and twice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I know. But turns out. I know, right? Okay. So, the flag election group later became the Bedford-Stuyvesant Political League, BSPL. And this pushed candidates to support civil rights, fought against racial discrimination in housing, and sought to improve economic opportunities and services in Brooklyn. So she eventually left this group in 1958 because she clashed with Holder over her push to, God forbid, give female members of the group more input in decision-making. Like, why would she do that when there were men to make decisions for her?
Oh, God.
Feelings. I have too many feelings. All right. That was not one correct note. Nope. All right. So she also worked as a volunteer for white dominated political clubs in Brooklyn, like the Brooklyn Democratic Club, the League of Women Voters. And so with the political league, she was part of a committee that chose the recipient of its annual Brotherhood Award. She was also a representative of the Brooklyn branch of the National Association of College Women. So she was trying to make, meaningful changes to the structure of these organizations. And this resulted in her being able to recruit more people of color into the 17th District Club and thus local politics. So, they say the right grassroots, like start small. And that makes a difference. This is like a great example of that.
Yeah. And let's be clear, Black people in particular, because I would imagine Flatbush, apparently, I didn't even realize how far back its Caribbean roots go.
Yeah.
So, and there's certain parts of Brooklyn that have deep Caribbean and Caribbean American roots. And one of the reasons it was is because Caribbean and Caribbean Americans started running for local offices in those areas.
Oh.
So again, voting matters. Voting matters.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, I moved to Flatbush, and what's funny is it was like also a Jewish neighborhood. So it's it's a really interesting neighborhood.
Yeah. True.
And lots of good food.
Oh, girl. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sometimes.
Me too.
Okay. So in 1960, she joined a new organization, the Unity Democratic Club, which was led by the former elect flag member, Thomas R. Jones. So the UDC's membership was middle class. It was racially integrated. It included women in leadership positions. So that's good. Yeah. So she campaigned for Jones, who lost the election in 1960, but then ran again 2 years later, and he won, becoming Brooklyn's, second Black assemblyman. Cool. So, after he accepted a judicial appointment rather than seeking re-election, she was like, hold up, I can do this too. So, she decided to run for his seat in the New York State Assembly in 1964. Now,
okay.
She faced, this is going to surprise you, so take a moment. But she faced resistance because she was female. I know.
No, Miriam, she faced opposition because she was a female. A female. Got to say it like that, because that's how those guys say female.
Yeah, a female.
A female, not a woman.
No,
female.
No.
A female. Red flag.
They're terrifying. All the boobs. I'm scared. Okay. So what she did was she appealed directly to women voters. She used her role as Brooklyn branch president of Key Women of America to mobilize female voters. And she won the Democratic primary in June of 1964. And then she won the seat in December with over 18,000 votes over the Republican and Liberal Party candidates. neither of whom received more than 1,900 votes. Okay.
Oh,
she did what
wow.
she had to do. Yes,
Yep.
she did. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So she was a member of the New York State Assembly from 1965 to 1968. She sat in the 175th, 176th, and 177th New York State legislatures. Now, by May 1965, she had already been honored in a Salute to Women Doers in New York. And one of her early activities in the assembly, this is good, we needed this, was to argue against the state's literacy test requiring English, holding that just because a person, quote, functions better in his native language is no sign a person is illiterate. Right?
Exactly. Well, common sense. Duh.
Just, you know what? That's the best response to this. I agree. Duh.
Yeah.
Like, really, world?
Yeah.
Okay. So by early 1966, she was a leader in a push by the statewide Council of Elected Negro Democrats for Black representation on key committees in the assembly. So some of the things she succeeded in doing while she was there was getting unemployment benefits extended to domestic workers. And I read that and I went, so domestic workers did not have unemployment benefits?
Nope.
Why is my voice so high?
Well, and also, I just want to just take a moment here to notate that this is what, 1964?
Yeah, 66, but
66.
64, yeah.
Now, Fannie Lou Hamer's in the South.
Oh, yes.
And around this time, she was brutally beaten by cops because she was talking to local Black people about not even voting, but registering to vote.
Yeah.
So that's going on while, Shirley Chisholm is doing, like shooting blazing this trail in New York. And that's even though segregation and racism still is prevalent in the North, one of the ways it's not as vicious and as ensconced in society as it is in the South during this time, but there's still a lot of resistance, but you do what you can with what you have. But I just wanted to give people some sort of context for that, like what's going on in the South versus what's going on in Brooklyn.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good point. If you see like what she's doing in Brooklyn at the same time, like it's all very important, but there's
all matters. Yes,
yeah,
it does.
I think that, and honestly, like I'm someone who looks at the burning fire of the world and go, yeah, it's fine. I'm just going to hovel up in my little corner and cry. But it really, if you can do a little thing on your, which this is a much bigger thing. This isn't a little thing, but even a little thing can make that difference. So she's watching the civil rights movement go, 1964, we had the Civil Rights Act, like all of this is happening. And she's going, okay, in my corner of the world, what do we need? What do we need?
She's also watched the Montgomery bus boycott that went on in the 50s that lasted for 18 months. And so like everybody, it's not, this struggle for liberation is not just Black liberation or gender liberation, but for all of us, but these are the people that did the work, did the hard work, did the unglamorous work of running for office at a local seat. You think, oh, it's not important. But then like she started at the ground up working, in these political clubs and these, the unions and all of this stuff is interconnected. All this stuff is important. So just want to put that in context for people.
She went to these very white Democratic clubs in New York that are almost famous for being, let's say, problematic. And
what are you talking about? There's no racism in New York City. What are you talking about, woman? There's no racism. Not in the North, not the Yankees.
I'm sorry, I'm crying. Right. So this is my moment to share with Lavetta that actually, right. So, and she just kind of went in. She did, she made the friends she could make, I love that about her. She made the connections she could make. She walked away when it was just getting a little too ridiculous. Like, good on her. and she kept going, I'd come home and cry. Let's just know yourself. I would come home and cry. But obviously, she's a better person than me. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. She also sponsored, let's get back on track here, a bill called the SEEK program, which was Search for Education, Elevation, and Knowledge, which provided disadvantaged students with a chance to enter college while receiving intensive remedial education. Because this woman knows what education is, and she gets it. Because if you were privileged and had tutors from the get-go, obviously you're going to be fine and get into college. But if you weren't, you were the opposite end of the spectrum. Maybe you had to have a job all through school, right? And you couldn't, then you still had a brain, you still had capacity. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So in August 1968, she was elected as the Democratic National Committee woman from New York State. So this is just a fun little side note that I felt like we could have fun dissecting. Okay, so in 1964, she was collecting signatures for her nominating petition for state assembly, and she was at a Brooklyn housing project, and an older African American man told her this quote. Ready? You're gonna like it. "Young woman, what are you doing out here in the cold? Did you get your husband's breakfast this morning? Did you straighten up your house? What are you doing running for office? This is something for men."
America, bitches. America. Just letting you know. America.
But you know what she did? She calmly explained her experience, her commitment to the community, and he signed the petition. So,
that's what I'm talking about. That's why she a boss lady.
Yes.
Yep.
Get it, girl.
That's why.
I would be like, you a motherfucker, but that wouldn't help anybody. So in 1968, she ran for the U.S. House of Representatives from New York's 12th Congressional District, which, as part of a court-mandated reapportionment plan, had been significantly redrawn to focus on Bedford-Stuyvesant. I keep wanting to say Bed-Stuy because I'm a New Yorker, and she was thus expected to result in Brooklyn's first Black member of Congress. That took too long. It took too long. I was like, yay, but I'm like, no, that took too long.
Yep.
I'm gonna say it's about damn time. That's what I'm gonna say. And then maybe I'll sing the song. I don't know. It's possible.
It's about damn time. Well, yeah, we can't afford more than that.
No, that's it. Stop. See, we're lucky because I never hit any notes. So they won't even recognize the song. It'll be fine. So she announced her candidacy around January 1968, and she established some early organizational support. Her campaign slogan was, you want to say it?
Unbossed and unbothered.
Okay, you were close, girl, but not quite. It's unbought and unbossed.
Are you sure?
I am.
Oh, okay.
I really am.
I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
But listen, I could hear you say those words all day. You say it in the best way.
Yeah,
I'm just unbought and unbossed. And then it was like, okay, fine, stop it.
You're very sweet. Okay. Yeah. It's your story.
So on June 18th, 1968, the Democratic primary, I don't know. That was not a sentence. So the Democratic primary was June 18th, 1968. She defeated two other Black opponents. So State Senator William S. Thompson and labor official Dolly Robertson. She staged in the general election an upset victory over James Farmer, who is the former director of the Congress of Racial Equality, who was running as a Liberal Party candidate with Republican support. And you know what? She needed to win that. That's what I say.
So she was the original AOC, huh?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so she became the first Black woman elected to Congress and the only woman in the first year class that year. That sounds exhausting. So, Speaker of the House, John W. McCormick, maybe not my favorite person, assigned her to serve on the House Agriculture Committee. House Agriculture Committee. So she was an education specialist from Brooklyn. House Agriculture Committee.
Sounds like somebody was being set up to fail.
Oh, but no. Bootstraps. What? You know what, though? She was fine. So this is where I was like, okay, what happened? She confided to, do you know this? Rev Menachem M. Schneerson.
Yes.
Okay, I did not. And she said she was upset, she was insulted, and he suggested that she use the surplus food to help the poor and the hungry. So she did that.
Smart. That's great advice.
Isn't that brilliant? Okay, do you know who Schneerson is? He's the Jewiest of, he is the Orthodox, like Lubavitch Jews considered him like Jesus-ish, but not Jesus. Not trying to offend my fellow Jews, but like a first coming, if you will. Like he was, and like my family was like, no, he's just a person. But he had a lot of, I didn't realize he had this level of like political sway outside of like the Jewish community until now.
Well, she's smart to partner with across the aisle. Like this is truly, but also it's one of those things where marginalized people realize that we all have to come together, like the smart ones realize, in order to create a powerful political bloc where we all get the things that we deserve, that, you know, feed into the American dream, versus being separated and then trying to fight these fights on our own in our small little silos. So yeah, very smart. Yep.
It's very smart. I mean, honestly, shout out, like if all the marginalized people got together, the other people wouldn't win anything ever again. They just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because there's too many of us.
But it's also like white supremacy is very seductive when people think that
seductive.
People think that they could get enough degrees or have the right kind of job, and despite what they look like or their background, and they'll be considered white. And that's just not the case.
Nope. It's just not. Like, it's not. Doesn't matter. Sometimes you learn the hard way. Okay. So she then met Bob Dole. She worked Bob Dole, right? To expand the food stamp program. She played a critical role in the creation of the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, aka WIC, which we should all know. She would credit Schneerson for the fact that, quote, poor babies now have milk and poor children have food. Yes. Like, stop fighting and feed the babies, you guys.
Yep.
So she was the third highest ranking member of this committee when she retired from Congress. This is later. Just a little quick note. She said she had faced more discrimination during her New York legislative career because she was a woman than because of her race. But who knows, you know.
Twitter would have something to say about that. But I also think that it's by nature of where she's located, because I think Fannie Lou Hamer would have the opposite thing.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Then a lot of Black women are like, well, this is equally fucked up. So,
but it's true. And also, you don't actually know what people are thinking.
Yeah.
And maybe at this time in this place, right? We're in the North, so we don't want to be considered racist. So we're just gonna demean the fact that she's a woman.
Yeah, and she got a lot of pushback from Black men too. So
yeah,
where that's coming from. Yeah.
She joined the Congressional Black Caucus in 1971 as one of its founding members. In the same year, she was also a founding member of the National Women's Political caucus. I can't say the word. Finally, she did end up on the Education and Labor Committee because she voted for the guy who then became the majority leader, and then he gave her this is politics, and she knew how to politic. And then she began exploring her candidacy in July 1971 and formally announced her presidential bid on January 25th, 1972 in a Baptist church in her district in Brooklyn. And that's all I got to say for today.
Yay!
Next week, she's going to run for president.
Yay! I love her.
I love her too.
Love her, love her, love her, love her. Well, let's change gears a little bit.
Let's do that.
And go to my Notorious Woman this week, which is, you guys, it has to be Miss Tina Turner. Miss Tina Turner, a.k.a. the Queen of Rock and Roll. Okay, let's get into it.
Nothing about me is surprised. Go on.
R.I.P. Miss Tina. Okay.
I love her.
So now this is not going to be like your traditional. A lot of people know everything about Tina Turner pretty much. So I'm going to go over the basics of her life, but I just want to get into some other stuff, some more like deeper discussions about, her emotional life, experiencing these things. So Tina Turner was born Anna Mae Bullock on November 26, 1939 in Nutbush, Tennessee.
City limit.
A small town just outside of Bronzeville, Tennessee. So it's kind of like we have them here in Florida too, where a lot of the Black population were from like an even smaller part of a small town.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what Nutbush is. The song says it all. So she was the youngest daughter of Floyd Richard Bullock and his wife, Zelma Priscilla Bullock, and they were sharecroppers, which is basically slavery with a little bit like $1 a day that you make.
Right.
But it's set up for sharecropping families to struggle and to fail, basically, because white supremacy and America's built on free labor. So there's that.
Wait, no, they freed the slaves and then everyone had a good time. I don't understand.
Yeah. Weird. So, I say all that to say is that sharecropping was brutal. And many people just were in a just never-ending cycle of debt and not being able to really pull their bootstraps up because their boots had holes in them and they were falling apart because sharecropping sucked.
Listen, if you don't have the boot, then you can't pull them up. So. Yeah.
And oftentimes many sharecropping families like Anna Mae's were probably only one or two generations away from slavery. And oftentimes they worked on the same plantations/farms that their ancestors were enslaved on. So, and it's by design. Sharecropping was by design.
So fucked up.
Yeah. So the family was barely surviving and they were working, doing backbreaking work. And this is where the little kids have to help out in the field and because they got to make the quota and but as a young child, she didn't realize just how hard her parents' lives were. And she seemed, when she was very young, relatively happy. But early on, she remembers her parents had stretches of separation. For instance, in the 1940s, her parents went to Knoxville to work in a defense factory for World War II.
Okay.
Again, so Tina's...
More money, I assume.
Right. Tina's doing this down in Nutbush while Shirley is in college up in Brooklyn.
Right. Exactly. I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what was different about her life, though, was when she was around 11 years old, her mother simply just abandoned the family.
Oh, God.
Now, she was, and this is where I can have some empathy for her mother. Basically, her mother, like many young women from poor backgrounds, she got involved with a guy, Floyd, got pregnant and was like, I guess, and either her mother from the pressure of society was like, well, you got to get married now. I was married now,
Yeah.
But also, so that's how Zelma, her mother, got into this relationship pretty much. But also Floyd was extremely abusive.
Ugh. Yeah.
So the cycle It's probably continuing or beginning. So she just up and left, and there were about 4 of them. So Zelma was like, I'm out. And Tina remembers that basically her mother just didn't want any more kids after that first accident. Like but women didn't have access to birth control. Nope. They didn't really have,
control of their own bodies.
Yeah. And then Floyd, oftentimes men are taking advantage of the women. They're taking out their frustrations on having to be a sharecropper out on, and they said that he had a high role, like a high status on a sharecropping, but I don't know how high that was. But he basically took it out on Zelma and the kids, I'm sure. Yeah. So they were pretty much in extreme poverty. But they were together at first, and that's what Anna Mae remembers. But so Zelma she just left and moved to St. Louis, big city, to get better work without the responsibility of raising children and cooking the food of an abusive man.
Yeah.
So she was just abandoned by her mother.
That's, oof.
And you can imagine that Floyd probably turned his frustrations onto the children.
Yeah, that's where I was heading. Yeah.
But to make matters even worse, 2 short years later, Floyd remarried another woman and moved away to Detroit and just left the children in a shack by themselves in the middle of a rural and racist town. They just abandoned, like they literally abandoned the children. And I didn't realize this until I watched her more recent documentary that she produced, that she talked about that, because a lot of people like to focus on her experiences with Ike, but she said really that this experience, that your parents could just like leave.
Ooh,
and she's like, they stayed in that. She said they stayed in the cabin waiting for them to return. And then they just figured after like a couple of days that, maybe they'll come back in a couple of weeks. Because, people have cell phones and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. You have no access to getting help. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just realized that they literally had to fend for themselves. Like, these are children. And she was 11.
How old were the kids?
Well, she was 11 when the mother left, and then 13. So a young girl who needs her mother, especially, and her parents. They just like left them. And not even like, I'm going to send for you, or like, here's some money until I can send you some more. Like, she said they just, like, maybe the older siblings had some correspondence with the parents, but to her, she just felt like forgotten and like discarded.
That's like, that makes all that she later does, like, it's all incredible, but to overcome that is unexpected, I have to say.
Yeah. So in that documentary, Tina, simply entitled Tina, available on Max, formerly HBO Max.
We should get paid for ads for this.
I know. This experience with complete abandonment by both parents and her strained and twisted relationship later on with her mother really rocked her to the core.
Yeah.
Again, often it's reported about her relationship and, with Ike. And again, that fucker, that bug-eyed motherfucker, that's what I'm calling Ike Turner.
That's
the bug-eyed motherfucker.
I support that.
Yeah, like that, to me, that's not really, because it's all about like a woman's, even a woman as phenomenal as Tina Turner, her identity has to be linked to a man to matter, I guess. But I just really was so interested in that, like the feeling of abandonment to like a 13-year-old, right? And then she's vulnerable sexually and just like a little girl.
She is like, that's honestly, like, in terms of a child's development, the absolute worst time. I mean, I understand you can't leave a 5-year-old alone, but in terms of like, you're just about to get your period, you suddenly have breasts, men are looking at you, like you need guidance and you need protection.
And it's also like, kids, when they're very young, cry because they don't think their parents are coming back. And then you just learn that, they'll come back. But they imagine like they don't, like they just come back, and every passing day you realize that they really just discarded you. And for fucking Floyd to move away and not take the children, I mean, at least take them with you and then drop them off in St. Louis. But they just left them in the middle of no fucking where.
That's
like, it just, I got so angry when I was watching the documentary. Like, you don't do that to babies.
You don't.
But the children,
you and I agree. You don't fuck with children.
I'm team baby. Even if I want to strangle them because they're annoying, I'm team baby
happens.
always.
It does happen.
Team children.
Protect them.
But kids being kids, and thank God they have that kind-hearted soul and so they held on to the promise of reuniting and rebuilding their relationships with, at least she did, with her mother. She lived briefly with her maternal grandmother in Bronzeville. So after a while, even the local people were like, I guess they just left them kids there. So somebody reached out to her maternal grandmother who then she lived with. Yeah.
Okay.
And she enrolled in school, and she was, considered a tomboy. She joined the cheerleading squad and the basketball team.
Good.
Carver High School.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she socialized. She was outgoing and effervescent, and despite that early experience with abandonment. But when she was 16, her grandmother died. So she went to live with her mother in St. Louis. By that time, one of her sisters had moved to St. Louis, her older sisters. So she's reuniting with her mother.
I mean, how awkward is that? You want to tell me why you left?
No, again, I think kids, and she even says she was just happy to be with her mother and her sister, with her family. Kids are very forgiving. Parents have a lot of opportunities to make it right. So
yeah, it's true.
Now in St. Louis, the music scene had exploded. It was vibrant. She went out and she socialized every chance she got. Her and her sister especially were both into music, and this is kind of how they met Ike Turner, and he came across her path because he was a local celebrity. Basically, he was a local, well-established, soul singer, local singer, and songwriter. He fronted his own band called the Kings of Rhythm. So
I think I knew that.
Yeah, again, she was just because he's significantly older than her, but she was just, out and about, but she wanted to sing. She sang back in Bronzeville. She sang in church. And, Ike was like, oh, he's a local celebrity. Like, he was like successful, and, so she would kind of like practice singing on her own. And then she finally got the courage to ask him if she could sing for him, wanting to get in, she wants to break into the business.
Right.
And he basically kept blowing her off because she's like this skinny little awkward country girl, and like, he's a big city man,
Yes.
And then one night, during one of his shows, there was an intermission. So she was like, I have to be brave. I have to be bold. So she just began singing, and she blew the crowd away with her.
Yes, Tina. Sorry.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay, so sing this and then sing that and then sing that. And everything she sang, it was just amazing because she had a very distinctive, smoky tone. And she's like this little skinny, like 16-year-old girl, 15, 16-year-old girl with like this voice that you don't expect to come out of her mouth, right?
That's amazing.
So her talent was undeniable, but it was raw. So I basically at first was kind of like just a brother figure. Like, just like somebody that like, kind of like a mentor, really. So in 1960, he was known for songwriting. And so he would write stuff and for like more established artists, singing artists. And while fronting his own band, you got to have a gimmick. So you're always looking for different ways to break in. So in 1960, he wrote a song for a mildly successful artist and booked a studio session to record it. But the artist was a no-show. Oops. So he's like, we already have the session. So Anime, you do this. Because he knew she could sing. So let's try it with a girl voice because this is for a man. Okay. So she did. And he played it for a couple of people. And the president of a local a local record label heard it. And he was blown away. And he told her, he was like, it sounded like her voice sounded like smoky dirt or something. Like,
that's weird. Okay.
Like, so great. And again, they were doing like old time soul music and old school rock and roll too, which was more soul based in a lot of ways. So he told Ike he should make Anime the star of the show because that's how good she was. Okay. So Ike, sensing he had an opportunity, he did that and renamed her Tina, gave her stage name because it rhymed with Sheena, Queen of the Jungle.
Okay.
And he added his and he added his last name to her with the intention of just like basically replacing her with another Tina Turner if she ever left him like so many else did before him.
Wow.
Like at least that's the word. I'm like, dude, get a therapist.
You know what?
Like
that absolutely tracks. Yep, that makes sense to me.
So it'd be a different Tina Turner. So, but she was officially introduced to the public as an artist under the new moniker Tina Turner, from Anna Mae Bullock to Tina Turner, in 1960 on a song called "A Fool in Love." In Ike's new group, called Ike and the Tina Turner Review. Now, as you can imagine, she was thrilled because she had dreams of being a singer, a girl singer. And like now she's doing it and people are saying she's talented. And so the song was a hit. And shortly after, Ike also added the Ikeettes, were basically her dancing, hype women behind her.
The Ikeettes.
And basically he just sort of gave her a makeover and like, because her performances were always so energetic, and he basically was her A&R person, and they worked on like cultivating the image and the group, but he was right there. So
the Ikeettes, man, like ego much? Like, come on. Yo.
Well, I mean, yeah. Now again, mentor, mentee, right? This is, if Ike Turner was not a piece of shit, he would have been like one of my favorite singers is Ella Fitzgerald. I'm Not Alone. Yes. And one of her early mentors was a man by the name of Chick Webb. Did the same thing. She became his girl singer. But Chick Webb was like a father figure. He supported her. He nurtured her. He encouraged Miss Ella Fitzgerald. So, but Ike was that bug-eyed motherfucker's a piece of shit. But anyway.
Definitely.
So after this, A Fool in Love, she exploded on the scene. They became a hit. Again, early on, Anna Mae thought of her relationship with Ike as a big brother giving her a shot at what she could do. She was still young, and she actually started dating. She liked boys, and she actually dated a guy in Ike's group. So again, nothing romantic about their relationship. She famously said she was never attracted to him, and we can understand why.
Yeah,
she liked handsome men. Yeah. But after again, it exploded, and she was just amazing. After sensing that basically Anna Mae was going to be his meal ticket to the big time, he forced her to marry him.
What?
And he just basically came to her and was like, sign this. And then one night she went to him for support because one of the other some man around was harassing her. So she went to him for support, and he basically raped her. That's what it is. I mean, allegedly, I need to say. The way she describes it, he just kind of just got on top of her, and she was so surprised and also horrified, but also scared because again, this was like a brother to her. So it was very weird. But yeah, the marriage, she thought, I guess it's just like a business thing. Because again, she's like a country bumpkin kind of girl.
She needed a lawyer before she signed anything.
Yeah. And she's just talent. She just wants to sing, and she's getting to do that. And she also felt grateful to him for the chance. Because again, he was a big deal and she was a nobody. But we all know that she had talent and star appeal, and he did not. That's why he needed her.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, this was always, the marriage thing was just to attach her to him permanently.
What a fucking asshole.
Yeah. And I mean, as we all know, I'm not going to go into it, he abused her viciously for many years. Yeah. All the while making him very fucking rich.
Yep.
Again, if there was ever a candidate to throw a motherfucker down a dark, raggedy walled well, it'd be fucking Ike Turner.
Yeah.
Bug-eyed motherfucker. But anyway, so we all know about that.
Makes me very happy. Yeah, that's a good one.
And bleed out. Yeah.
Now, all the slowly. Yeah.
Slowly. Yeah. And be feasted on by rats. But
you were watching it because you're not dead yet. Yeah.
No, exactly. Now, all the abuse was laid out in her autobiography, I, Tina, when she became a massively successful solo artist. So I'll spare you all the gory details. Look it up. Also, there's a fabulous Oscar-nominated performance by Angela Bassett, that you guys can check out in the feature film What's Love Got to Do with It.
So good.
But, again, it's all been laid out, so you guys already know. So he abused her viciously. She went through a cycle of like, survivor's guilt, then like making excuses for him, all kinds of stuff. And then getting the courage to finally be like, I got to get the fuck out of here, which happened in 1976.
Yeah,
Again,
that was the year I was born, y'all. It's a good year.
Again, it's in the movie. What's love got to do with it? She filed for divorce, and he had always told her, like, if you leave me, you get nothing. And she finally, in the divorce, which was finalized in 1978, she basically gave up everything, like the furs, the cars. He took everything from her.
You know what, motherfucker? That's fine. Because she's Tina Turner. She's going to be fine.
Exactly. The one thing she asked for is her name, Tina Turner.
Yes.
And at first he didn't want to give her that because he knew, again, because I remember back then when he was like, I can replace her with another Tina Turner.
So many Tina Turners.
Exactly. After 20-something, after 15, 16 years. But she knew the value of that. So, finally, after getting rid of this limp dick motherfucker, her wings, she could finally untie her wings and she could soar. So she's set to rebranding herself as an old school R&B soul artist to something, from a old school R&B artist to something else. At first, she wasn't sure. She's trying to find her new creative legs. She wasn't kind of sure. She knew that she could perform. She always said, I knew I was talented. I could, and her performances were always electrifying, even as a solo artist. But, figuring out like, what's the new image? What's the new take? Rebranding. So she
gotta get a gimmick. Yep.
She had a few appearances on TV shows and guest spots for like variety shows. She released actually 2 solo records that petered out. I didn't even know that. And again, because maybe her new image hadn't quite been formed. But in 1979, she met a manager by the name of Roger Davies, he was an Australian guy, and he was a great manager. He basically was the kind of creative support system that artists need. He helped her crystallize what she wanted to say, how she wanted to say it, and basically did what Ike did back in the day, but he was her manager because that's what managers and ER people do. And he did not abuse her because that was not going to happen again.
So much better.
Yeah, he was a creative partner. So, because he said he saw her once doing like the shtick was like old hack or whatever. He's like, but you could not take her eyes off of her in Vegas. He's like, she was amazing. And it wasn't even that many people in the crowd. Like, he knew he had good taste. So, so he actually got her, he had great connections. He got her an opening gig for the Rolling Stones, which is ironic.
Oh, yeah.
Both Mick and Tina have admitted that Mick Jagger got many of his quote unquote moves from watching her and the Ikettes. But obviously that's a great sign that her career is moving in the right direction. And also around this time, she said she was tired of singing old woe is me R&B songs. She wanted to sing, or bluesy songs. She wanted to sing rock and roll, like,
yeah.
So slowly but surely, her image and who she was started to slowly change in people's minds as she came into this new act as a solo artist. And then in 1983, she released her cover of Al Green's "Let's Stay Together," which became it became a top 10 hit. And it surprised everyone, probably not Tina and Roger, but Capitol Records was so impressed by the single that they rushed an order for an album. So
can I share something real quick?
Of course.
That was the song that was played at our wedding after we were married, because I was obsessed with that song. And I was
it's a great one.
We have to put it somewhere. And Sal was like, okay, because he loves Tina Turner too. So.
Who does all love Tina Turner, right?
I can't be friends with you if you don't love Tina Turner.
I know,
sorry.
I know.
Yeah.
That means you have no taste.
Yeah, obviously.
So they were like, we need an album pronto. So they were like, we give you 2 weeks.
Oh, shit.
But 2 weeks to a new artist would be like, oh, shit. But to Tina, okay, I got this motherfucker. So they rushed and, she had 20 years of performing under her belt. So she came through like a champ, and she released the title of the album was Private Dancer in 1984. With the standout single, What's Love Got to Do with It? Yeah, which became her first hit as a solo artist. Needless to say, her solo career exploded.
Yeah.
She won numerous Grammy Awards that year and beyond, graced the covers of magazines, and had a sold-out tour over the next couple years. But because sexism, everywhere she went, despite this new career and image, people kept asking her about Ike. What about Ike? Da, 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 da.
Well, it's like, do you exist without a man? Like, I'm very confused. Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm only seeing a woman. Weird.
Exactly. So she lamented this to Roger, and he was, they came up with like, maybe you should write a book. So hence Tina. Okay. So she wrote this book, but then again, it became about the abuse. And I agree with her. She's always said that always bothered her because people just want to know all the gory details, and it's like, I'm not that person anymore. Right. Like I want to be. Yeah. So she
shouldn't have to be that person.
She shouldn't have to be that person. And that book, I mean, obviously it was a bestseller. And again, it spawned the Oscar nominated film, What's Love Got to Do with It? It also let Tina dip her toe in the acting realm, and she starred in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Which was a huge hit as well. And I'm just going to run through this. I mean,
Sal likes to talk about that one a lot, by the way. It's his favorite. And he's always like, Tina Turner's in it. Let's watch.
She's so good at it. She's so great at it. Now, throughout the rest of the 80s, she was a star in her own right to a whole new generation of fans, people who didn't remember the Ike and Tina stuff. And in the 90s, her career was equally hot. She did numerous world tours. In 1991, she was inducted into, she and Lumphead, bug-eyed motherfucker, were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I mean, he should be inducted, but not there.
Yeah, but
terrible.
It's, she accepted it. But in 1993,
go on.
I know. In 93, the film What's Love Got to Do with It was released. And in 95, she released a title song to a James Bond film of the same name, GoldenEye. Dun, 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 dun. It's one of my favorite James Bond theme songs. Basically, her career as a solo artist, like, overshadowed her career as Ike. Like, yeah, like by tenfold. Like, I think that's what people don't realize when they keep bringing up fucking Ike. And so in the 2000s, she was still an A-list star, and she began to settle into the elder stateswoman status with the Kennedy Center honor. Yeah, she released a greatest hits album. She also came out of semi-retirement and performed with a smitten Beyonce. Beyonce was like, that's my girl, Miss Tina. Miss Tina Turner is my girl. So she was just enjoying the life that she had she deserved and had cultivated for herself. While Bug-Eyed Man, his career floundered because basically he knew.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, he knew that without her, he was nothing. And he was right, because when they broke up, he got all the money, got all that stuff, and nothing ever happened after Tina left.
Good. And that's satisfying. Yeah.
He died in 2007. So
bye.
And the following year, she's performing with Beyonce at the Grammy. So
yeah.
In the 2010, she received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Grammys. In 2013, she accepted Swiss citizenship and was living with her best life in a villa.
Yes.
With her much younger partner turned husband, Erwin Bach.
Tina, yes.
Oh, yeah. Now, she revealed in a 2018 memoir, My Love Story, that she had multiple life-threatening illnesses in the later 2010s. She had high blood pressure since 1978, which remained mostly untreated and resulted in damage to her kidneys and eventual kidney failure. It's probably linked to the abuse.
Yeah.
In 2013, 3 weeks after her wedding to Bach, she had a stroke and needed, because they had been together for years, but then they got married in 2013.
Okay.
She needed to learn how to walk again. In 2016, she was diagnosed with intestinal cancer. While she attempted to treat it with homeopathy, it worsened.
Yeah.
So Bach offered her, he gave her a kidney. Now that's bad air. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. You keep that, man. You keep him.
Yeah. Yeah. So she got that transplant in 2017. So she went on to kind of lead a quiet life again, villa, just chilling, living her best life. she earned it, and just being the queen bee that she is. But this recently on May 24th, 2023, Miss Tina Turner died in her home in Switzerland at age 83 after a couple years of illnesses, from the complications from the untreated and undiagnosed conditions. But I want to run through a couple things that people may not know. In 1967, she was the first Black artist and the first female on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, which was its number 2 issue. Private Dancer, the album in 2020 was added to the National Recording Registry at the Library of Congress. And Tina Turner has the distinction of being a 2-time Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, once with Bug-Eyed Man, and the second as a solo artist.
Yes.
That is why she is the queen. And she has hundreds of accolades. It would take like 3, 4, 5 episodes to go over all her accolades. But that is why Tina Turner is the queen of rock and roll. And that is why she's also a testament to you keep going, you hope for the best, you work hard, but also believe in yourself and believe in your talent. And no person, no man can give that to you or take that away from you. It is always within you. And only partner with people who uplift you. And that's what I really want to focus on, like on her life, on her accomplishments. And one thing I want to bring up as I'm finishing up, like I got from that documentary, Tina, that the big heartbreak in her life was not the Ike stuff. It was with her mother, because during that 16, 17 years of being with Ike, she was, she would leave. Obviously, she'd try and get away from him. And her mother would often tell Ike where she was.
Oh my God. Jesus.
Her mother would often betray her. And then after she left Ike, her mother would always undermine and demean her accomplishments. And she always felt like her mother, like she said, she remembers buying her mother a home, and beautiful multi-million-dollar home, being like, Mom, look what I got. And her being like, being judgmental. That was the true heartache of her childhood wound, not the Ike stuff. Because that centers him in her life. Right. And I really want to center Tina Turner in the life that she so well deserved. That was just she hadn't seen Ike probably since they got a divorce, unless he came looking for her.
Right.
Since like 1978. And people kept bringing him up. Because why? Because sexism.
I mean, people are fascinated, I think, benefit of the doubt.
But I also think it's a bit of trauma porn, like, ooh, like, what was it like? And like, and it's just like, yeah. And it's just like, so like disconcerting. So I just wanted to focus on her. And, that is just a tip of the iceberg of what Tina Turner contributed to this world, what her beautiful spirit brought to rock and roll, to R&B, to soul, to America, to the world, to music lovers, and to her fans, and her haters. But Anna Mae Bullock, aka Tina Turner, aka the queen of rock and roll, was my notorious woman, because she dared to become her own woman, and that's what makes her notorious in a lot of people's minds. So that is Tina Turner. And
I love her so much. I feel like I learned so much more about her.
Oh, I'm glad. I mean,
I have loved her from a very small child. So,
and I also encourage people, when they think of Tina Turner, not to always think of her in relation to him, but to think of her in her own right, which I think a lot of younger people do. But, people are just going to be awful and because of sexism. It's really, that's plain and simple. So, but that is Tina Turner. And that wraps up our latest episode of Notorious Women. Guys, remember to follow us on all the things.
Yes,
please share, like, subscribe. If you want to support us financially on Patreon, you can do that over at patreon.com/notoriouswomen. That's patreon.com/notoriouswomen. And I'll let Miriam tell you and other ways you can reach us as well.
Okay, you can email us at notoriouswmpod@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, please. It is so easy to find. It is Notorious Women Podcast. Super easy. It's a good time. I think it's kind of amusing, our Instagram. So come hang out. You can also DM us on the Instagram if you have any thoughts or ideas or whatever, if you have a thought or a reaction to an episode, we'll probably bring it up. So go ahead and do that.
Yeah. And if you have any comments or suggestions or corrections on our show today, you can leave that too. Just be a dick about it. Don't be a dick about it. Just be.
We love to learn more. Exactly.
Yes.
Like if we're wrong, and that's totally possible. #NotHistorians. Let us know. Let us know.
Yeah. And with that, we will wrap it up, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.